All right, so first and foremost, I'm gonna start off by saying Barakathon, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah Bahashim Yahweh Okakadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and shout out to the hopefully elect. Start with the 144,000 Shalom. All right, so in this lesson, Lord willing, we're gonna say it's gonna be a long one. We're gonna flow through the spirits, flow through the spirit, how about how shy, and this was going into. I mentioned it yesterday when I did a kind of sit down type lesson, but I want to go into just understanding how Yahushua made himself into a servant, no reputation. Because when he was born, they brought him all the riches or whatnot. And such, Yahushua was rich. He had those riches and things and such, but that was not of his interest. He didn't care about those things. He wasn't trying to receive a corruptible crown. He wanted the incorruptible crown. He knew what he had to do within, for the Father, right? Which lead him to, eternal light. Every knee shall bow unto him. He knew he had to get done the Father's will, right? And that's kind of what we focus. That's what we focusing on, right? Doing the will of Yahweh Shah. That's how we mark our path after Yahweh Shah, because he came and showed us, right? Even though you have these distractions, you have these things, money, cars, clothes, females. Excuse me, got the hiccups a little bit. You have all these things, but these things mean nothing compared to the truth, because those are corruptible things. Those things can be taken away. That's why Scripture say, "Don't let this mind be in you." Right? Matter of fact, I'm gonna go to after this Matthew 4. Right? We'll read this real fast. It says Matthew 2 and 11, and it's talking about Yahushua was born, in Bethlehem. Of course, Herod the king, he wanted to try to come kill him or whatnot, but at the same time, those people that was coming, they was bowing down to Yahushua, and they was giving him riches, gold, things and such. So we read right in Matthew 2 and 11. It says, when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, talking about Yahushua, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they're going to show Yahushua had riches. Yahushua was rich, right? But he made himself no reputation. He didn't care for those things, right? Those things weren't in his interest, right? Let's go to Matthew, right? I'll start at verse 1. It says, Then was Yahushua led up of the spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Because you're going to be tempted in this truth. You're going to have these temptations. Because you got the spiritual demon of doubt, right? And you got the physical sons and daughters of Satan, Esau, Edom, right? And, really both try to create that trap. That's why it says, money leads to a trap. Those when you get rich, it leads to a trap, man. Because when you truly get rich, them Esau, them so-called white man, so-called white folks, man, they gonna try to come grab you up, make you sell your soul, do all. It's a lot of things that it's a trap that come behind, trying to build wealth and fame within this world, right? What profits a man gain this whole world, lose his soul, right? So this Matthew 4:1 again says, then when Yahushua led up of the spirit to the wilderness to be tempted of the devil, and when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came, that's that spiritual demon of doubt, man. The tempter, right? It comes into your mind all type of ways, right? Try to get you in all type of ways, man. That's why you got to stay vigilant and sober, man. Just stay on that point. Stay on point. It says, when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the son of power, command these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of my mouth. Because this word, food for thought, man. We got to retain this knowledge. We got to eat the whole roll. We got to eat this knowledge up. We got. That's why Yahushua said, I will come sup with him. When I knock at the door, our minds, and we let him in, and we retain his knowledge and understanding, right? We being sincere and honest within his truth. Yahushua, he'll sup with us, reveal those parables, those dark sayings. Reveal this playbook, man, to overcome this devil. To overcome this devil, to get through this wicked place. Right? It says, then the devil taketh him up into the holy city and sits him on the pinnacle of the temple. It said unto him, if thou be the son of power, cast thyself down. For it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee. In their hands they shall bear thee up, lest any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. And Yahushua said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy power. Again, the devil taketh him up into the exceeding high mountain and showeth him all the kingdom of the world and the glory of them. So he's showing him all these things. You can have all this, right? You can have all these things, right? It says, and said unto him, all these things will I give thee if thou will fall down and worship me. And you have a lot of people who give in to that because why? They want that They want that crown this life. Was that 1 Corinthians 9:25? And the brother brought out account. Yeah, right. 1 Corinthians 9:25, right? It says, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible crown, right? So we ain't trying to build no, we ain't trying to be seen as good, rich, filthy, good life down here, because we understand we got to do the suffering and pain. We understand the hardship that we got to face. We understood that, we understood that we're servants to Yahweh Shah, right? It's servants then sons, because why? We serve unto righteousness, right? Chasing that righteousness, right? And doing that suffering, doing that pain, and doing that chastisement was Lord willing, that's what makes us those joint heirs, the elect, right? Those joint heirs with Yahweh Shah, who's gonna, who's gonna receive that perfection in the kingdom. We're beating up to those chariots, Lord willing, right? We have that number, right? Well, let's go back to Matthew 4. But these people do it. They do it to be seen good and have a good life down here. They want it all right now. What Paul said, Paul said it, right? And Timothy, right? There's a crown laid up for me, right? Not he wasn't trying to get it right now. He wasn't trying to get it then. He knew he was gonna be beheaded. He knew he had to go out for the truth. He knew the suffering he had to take for the truth, being beheaded for the truth. But guess what? He understood that incorruptible crown he gonna receive, right? The incorruptible crown he gonna receive from Yahweh Shah. That's why the Lord said, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare thyself for temptation, right? Because you're gonna have temptation, you're gonna have that spiritual demon doubt trying to get you. Think about Job, right? Job kept his pace. They were trying to tell the Most High, hey, look, this man only good to you because he got all the things. So the Most High will tell him, hey, go ahead out there and try and go do this, go do that. And names are hard. Job lost his wife, he lost his kids, he lost everything. But guess what? He kept his faith and patience in Yahweh Shah because he knew, right? Yahweh Shah controls it all. It's like, 1 Corinthians 10:13, there ain't no temptation that ain't on the man. Everything we face, we go through, Yahweh Shah created. But it's for those ones who can endure it and keep that patience until the end. Matter of fact, quick precept off that point came to mind real fast. I want to say Revelations 3:10, right? It says, because thou hast kept because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them to upon the earth. And that's why we move in the spirit, because the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The flesh is going to give in to it. The flesh is going to fall for it. But the spirit, how about you outside, going to allow us to overcome. That's why I said we battle against what? Spiritual wickedness in high places, man. We're not battling against flesh and blood. Our weapons are not carnal. Yahweh Shah is going to handle the fleshly part, the physical part. We got to be prepared mentally. We got to prepare ourselves mentally, man. It's a spiritual battle, man. Right? So, right, in verse 9, he says, and says unto him, all these things I give thee, thou fall down and worship me. In verse 10, right, it says, then saith Yahweh Shah to him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt not worship the Lord, thou shalt worship the Lord, thou shalt worship the Lord, thy power, right, and him shalt thou only serve, right? So we ain't giving in, we ain't following in, right? We focusing on Yahweh Shah, right? That's all we focusing on, right? Because this how shows you those riches Yahweh Shah had, the devil trying to tempt him with all this kingdom, because why? What Yahweh Shah tell them, right? This right here is the story, when his parents went into the Jerusalem for the Passover, right? And Yahweh Shah was 12, right? He was 12 years old, right? And then, when his family leave, his mom and his dad leave or whatnot, he's not with them, so they're looking for him, trying to find him, right? But he in the temple teaching, right? So this is I started verse 48. I started verse 47. Actually, 46. I started verse 46. And it came to pass that after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of doctors, both hearing them asking no questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. Right? It says, when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, son, why hast thou dealt with us? Right? It says, behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. Right? He said unto them, how is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business? Who do you think he talking about? He talking about what? Talking about Yahweh, because Yahweh Shah was sitting down here, right? He was sitting down here to bring that light unto us, to show us that way, to bring that knowledge, understanding to us, for us to get out of the ways of the other nation. So money, cars, clothes, all those things. He had Vic selling out for a good life, for things like that. We don't have to do none of that. We're going to have to do it yourself. We're going to have to do it and do the pain, right? Right, this is John 15:20, right? I, every woman is man. The head of every man is Mashiach, Yahushua. Then the head of Yahushua is who? The Father, Yahweh. And these Christians, they bought out thinking they're the same people. No, right? Because Yahweh, the Father, sent the Son, Yahushua, down here to show us that path. To show us the way. That's why He the Lord, Lord, King of Kings. And He endured that suffering. He endured that pain. He endured that hardship. Right? So that's the same thing we're going to have to go through. Right? That's why the scriptures say what, we're joint heirs with Him, right? We're joint heirs, and if we joint heirs with Yahushua, guess what? We got to endure the suffering. We got to do the suffering pain with Yahushua, right? I'm gonna hold that John 15:20 real fast. I'm gonna go down to quickly to just a quick precept, Galatians 4, right? And right here, verse 7, right? It says, "Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of Yahweh through Mashiach," right? And so, meaning what, right? Because now, we're servants unto righteousness, right? Because we're enduring that suffering, doing that pain, doing that chastisement. When you're on a disciplined path, right, you discipline yourself to stop doing things that you were doing wrong. So that's what we on. We building ourselves up to that, desiring that sincere milk to build ourselves to a spiritual man, right? Knowing the right and knowing the right and wrong. So now we stand focused on that righteousness, right? And with us, as I quoted earlier, Romans 8, and with us and doing that suffering and pain, that makes us joint heirs with Yahushua, because Yahushua endured those things, right? So we're no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then we're here, right? Now I read that Romans 8 real fast. Then we'll go back to John 15:20, right? So this is Romans 8:17. It says, "If children, then heirs of Yahweh, and joint heirs with the Mashiach. If so be that we suffer with Him, we may also be glorified together." So we got to do that suffering, and we got to endure that suffering and pain, right? We got to do that suffering and pain, man. We got to suffer that righteousness. We got to suffer righteous sake, that long suffering, right? Going through that hardship. That same thing that Yahushua faced, right? This is John 15:20 real fast, right? It says, "Remember the word." This is how Yahushua talks in the red. It says, "Remember the word that I said unto you. The servant is not greater than his Lord," right? "If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also," right? It says, "But all these things that they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not Him that sent me." And you got to understand, we enduring this suffering, enduring this pain for Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, right? We're gonna take whatever come with it. We're not gonna turn our back on it, right? And that's the same thing Yahushua did. It's Matthew 26, right? And verse 39. This is when when Yahushua, he was he's ready to get persecuted, right? He's ready to die. Right. So I started verse 36, right? It says, "Then Yahushua then cometh Yahushua with them into a place called Gethsemane, and said unto His disciples, Sit ye here while I go and pray yonder. He took with him Peter and two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy," because, man, he knew he had to lay down for the tree. He knew that, right? He knew what he had to do for the Father, right? It says, "Then said he unto them," mind you, we just showed you how the devil tried to offer him all these kingdoms, how people bring him money, all these things. He was rich, right? But guess what he focusing on, right? It says, "Then he said unto them, My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me." Right? And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." Right? If it's possible, that, we ain't got to go through this, let it happen. Let the cup pass from me. But he knew what he had to do, because that's why he said this also. He said, "Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt." Right? So what he's saying, right? But if I continue to read down, right? He said, and he comes to his disciples and finding them asleep. He says to Peter, "What, could ye not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation," right? The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. That's why you got to move through the spirit, man. But the point is really right here, right? He says that he went away again a second time and prayed, saying, "Oh, Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done." Then we asked earlier, like, look, if I ain't got to do it, we don't got to do it, if it's of your will. But if it's of your will for me to go through this, then your will be done. And that's the thing Yahushua was focusing on. That's why he's the author and finisher of our faith, man. He wasn't focusing on the riches. He wasn't focusing on, paying kingdom, seen as a king, things such that down here. He focused on the will of the Father. That's why he said, "Thy will be done." Right? He's focusing on everything the Father. This Philippians, right? So I'm gonna start at verse 1. It says, if there be therefore any consolation in Hamashiach, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels of mercy, fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being one accord and one mind, because he's the author and finisher of our faith. It says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, being humble, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look, not every man on his own thing. Not every man on his own things, but every man also on things of others. Let this mind be in you, which is also in Mashiach Yahushua. Let this mind be in you, man. The focus on the will of the Father, man. Understand your calling, brother. As I'm really paraphrasing, right? Understanding our calling, man. Understand that nothing else matters nothing matters but the will of Yahushua. That's to teach His word. That's to endure their suffering. That's to endure their pain. And that's what's going to also make us them joy here, that elect, those ones who are going to receive that first dominion in the kingdom, right? It says, verse 6 says, who being in the form of power, right, thought it not, being in the form of the Most High, thought it not robbery to be equal with the Most High, right? It said, but made himself of no reputation and took upon him the form of a servant and was made in the likeness of men, right? Took upon the form of a servant because why? He was focused on getting the will done, being a servant to righteousness, man, moving in that righteous way, right? He wasn't trying to be out here getting rich. He wasn't trying to be out here being, all that thing, even though he could have, but he focused on being a servant to Yahushua, man. That's why he's no more a servant. He's a son, and that's why he within that he receiving the kingdom. He receiving all things, all judgments given unto him. Yahweh gave Yahushua everything in righteousness, man, because Yahushua endured that righteousness. He endured that suffering. He endured that pain, right? He did what the Father said for him to do, right? It says, in being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, which you just read, even the death of the cross. Wherefore Yahweh also had highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name, right? Because the angel, he went into the spiritual realm, and the angels was clapping for him, man. Angels was clapping for him because Yahweh he did that, He ain't come out here trying to be rich. He ain't come out here trying to be cocky, prideful, boastful. No, he came out here to do exactly what the Father said for him to do, right? And that's why he's the author and finisher of our faith. Once again, that's what we focusing on, man. Thy will be done. The Lord willing, that'll be taught a lesson. Thy will be done. If this cup cannot pass from me, man, thy will be done, man. I'm going to do what you said for me to do, right? Let's hold that. We'll come back to that. Let's go to John 5:30 real fast, right? This John 5 and verse 30 says, I can of my own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father which has sent me, right? He's not seeking out his own will, he's seeking out the will of the Father which has sent him, man. And that's Yahweh, right? Yahweh sent Yahushua down here, and that's why, once again, he's the author and finisher of our faith, right? I'm gonna go to this comment over here, right? It's Hebrews 12:2. I read it in NLT. It says, we do this by keeping our eyes on Yahushua. We keep our eyes on Yahushua because he's the author and finisher of our faith. We stand focused, right? But if I read verse 1, it says, therefore, since we surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down. We got to get out with these people, get out with this world, get out, depart from this world. It says, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and that's that temptation. You got to think that spiritual demon of doubt try to get you in those ways he can get you, right? That's why he said, you come to the Lord, but also with temptation. The spirit is willing, the flesh is weak. Matthew 26:41. Let's not fall into temptation. Because that temptation try to come get you in our way. That's why Paul also said what, right? Paul said, I boast in my infirmities. My weaknesses, I boast in my, I work on them. You know, if I'm in the gym and my weaknesses is bench, I'm working on my bench press. We working on our weaknesses. You know, to ultimately in the kingdom, we're gonna receive that full perfection. But right now, we building ourselves up through the Spirit, becoming that spiritual man, that spiritual discipline. Staying focused on that narrow path, staying focused on the righteousness of Yahweh Shah, being servants unto righteousness. Right? It says, and let us run with endurance the race Yahweh has set before us. Right? You know, First Corinthians 9:24. Right? So, matter of fact, I'll hold that. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24 real fast. It says, know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize, so run that ye may obtain. Right? So we all in this race, man. It's a marathon. It's a patient process, man. You got to be able to endure. You got to be able to keep running. You know what endurance means? Endurance means you can go for a long time. You got to keep your endurance to the end. You got to overcome. You got to fight. You got to stay strong. And how we going to do that? He said we do this by keeping our eyes on Yahweh Shah, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross. Disregarding its shame, now he is seated in the place of honor beside Yahweh's throne. And that made me think of a precept real fast. Romans 8 in verse 18, it says, for I reckon that the suffering of this present time they are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. Right? So this suffering, this pain, all these things that we're going through, the things we're facing, is not compared to the glory that's in front of us, man. Right? It's not compared to, that's why we got to suffer with Yahweh Shah. Because he suffered, he endured it, and look what he received, man. Right? Sitting on the throne with the Father, man. Right? And that's the same thing we're going to receive if we endure these things, Lord willing. That's the same thing we're going to receive. We endure this suffering. We endure this pain. We endure this hardship. Then we got to be servants unto righteousness, man. You can't thank you more than what you is, man. The servant's not greater than his master, man. You're going to face these things. So trying to build a good life, trying to build all, no, man. Yahweh Shah ain't live like that. None of the sincere men Yahweh Shah lived that way. Don't get me wrong, you had rich men in Israel, but that's not the point of this thing, man. We endure the suffering, the pain, and hardship because in the kingdom, we're going to receive all that, right? So I want to go to Philippians 2 in the NLT here, and I want to start at verse 6, right? It says, though he was power, he did not think of equally with Yahweh as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being when he appeared in human form. He humbled himself in obedience to Yahweh and died a criminal's death on the cross. Therefore, Yahweh elevated him to the place of the highest honor and gave him the name above all other names. And that's that's that crown of righteousness that you're gonna receive in the kingdom, right? That Luke, Second Ezra chapter 2, man. The one that Paul's talking about, because you got to endure that suffering and pain. This is what Yahweh Shah did, right? You do that suffering and pain, it's going to be a crown laid up for you. Not a corruptible crown, right? An incorruptible crown. Nothing that can be taken away from you, man. The kingdom of Yahweh Shah. It says, in the name of Yahweh Shah, every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth and under earth. That's why we give honor and glory to Yahweh, the Father, by Hashem, in the name Yahweh Shah, the Son, man. Right? I got one more quick precept. And this precept really sparked me through the Spirit to do this lesson right here. Luke 22. Actually, I was looking at it in NLT as well. I'll really be back and forth in it. Let's see, Luke 22 and around verse 24. Around verse 25, right? It says, Yahushua told them, in this world the kings and great men lord it over their people. Yet they are called friends of the people. But among you it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant, right? Leadership like a servant, we give honor and glory to Yahweh Shah. We being servants to the righteous, man. We serving him. Not no money, not no car, not no clothes. We being servants unto righteous, servants unto Yahweh Shah, focusing on his will, doing what he set for us to do. Right? He says, who is more important? The one who sits at the table or the one who serves? The one who sits at the table, of course, but not here. For I am among you as one who served. He said, you have stayed with me in my time of trial, and just as my Father has granted me a kingdom, I will now grant you the right. And I read verse 30 says to eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and you will sit on the throne judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Yahweh predicts Peter denial. So he's telling the Savior, he gonna deny him 3 times, whatnot. But the point is, right? You see, we didn't do that suffering and pain. You got to be humble. We come into this thing to service to Yahweh Shah. And we didn't do that suffering and pain. We read in Galatians for we no more service. If we're a son, if we're a son, then we're heir. But if we're heir of Yahweh, we're joint heir with Yahweh Shah. And being joint heirs with Yahweh Shah, we got to suffer. We got to suffer. We got to go through pain. We got to go through hardship. But none of that's compared to the glory that's in front of us. So you can't come to this thing. You got to come to the truth unleavened. With that, in the book of 1 Corinthians, if I'm not mistaken, you got to come to the truth unleavened, man. You can't come to the truth with that pride of life, with the pride of this world. You gotta let all that go when you come to this truth. We service, man. We're nothing. We're nothing. We're nothing to this world. We don't care about being famous, nothing like that, right? We give up all that for this truth, man. And within that, we do that. As he said, you have stayed with me in my time of trial, that temptation. Right here in the KJV, it says, ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations, and I appoint to you a kingdom that my Father has appointed unto me, man. That make us do join here because it's Yahweh Shah kingdom, but he's sharing it with us because we ain't doing that suffering and pain. We dropping everything and becoming service unto righteousness, being service unto Yahweh, right? Yahweh Bashin Yahweh Shah, right? And doing that suffering, doing that pain, doing the same thing that Yahweh Shah did. What we read Hebrews 12, right? Keeping an eye on him. Looking at the path he set for us. He overcame the temptation. He overcame all the gimmicks and games, right? So that we can, through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shah. That's why we have the comfort which Yahweh Shah left unto us, right? Because all we focusing on is the will of the Father, man. Yahweh Shah. We always focus on the will of Yahweh Shah, what He set for us to do, right? And Yahweh Shah came and showed us that, right? So we making ourselves, Yahweh Shah made himself like to a servant. You think you gonna be more than that? You think you gonna have it holly jolly good? Yahweh Shah, who really could have just had it all if he wanted to just drop it and do it all, right? You think you gonna be out here just living holly jolly, having the perfect life? No, right? Because even when Yahweh Shah, he was perfect. He didn't see him when he was down as Yahweh Shah, but he endured it. He endured the pain and suffering. He endured the pain and suffering as a servant, man. Let's see what Let's see if we can do a definition right quick, right? A servant, right, says a person who performs duties for others, especially a person employed in the house or on domestic duties or a personal attendant. Let's see, what does it mean to be a servant? To be a servant means to help, support, or work for another person or cause. That's what we do. We support and we teach and prophesy the word of Yahweh Shah. That's those watchmen. Prophesying the downfall of this kingdom and prophesying giving warning unto Jake, man. Telling Jake to return back to the Father, right? He said often involving humility, humbleness, selflessness, right? You can't be selfish and prioritizing other needs. That's what we do. We prioritizing Yahweh Shah, making sure they get all honor and glory. We're not trying to get honor and glory for ourselves. We're not trying to do that for ourselves. We're making sure they get all the honor and glory. Understand that that his name is not no God. His name is Yahweh. His name is not Jesus. His name is Yahweh Shah, right? It says, that's really I'll continue reading on. Prioritizing others' needs, whether in a paid role like a domestic or public servant, or spiritually, right? It's a good right here. Or spiritually serving Yahweh or a higher purpose, embodying a spirit of willing assistance and dedication rather than just forced labor, man. Right? Because we want to do this. We want to do this. So we want to do the hardship because Yahweh Shah said, hey, if this cup not pass me, that will be done. As we focus on the will and works of Yahweh Shah, that's what we focusing on, man. Right? Jake get caught up with the affairs of this world and it's tearing them up. It's that melted pot. It's tearing them up, man. It's getting them caught up. Right? You got to depart from this world. Become like a servant, man. Like how Shah did, man. Became like to a servant. NLT said he came like a slave, man. And doing the suffering, and doing the pain, and doing what comes with this truth no matter what. Right? So Lord willing, right? That's what's edifying and exalting, man. We'll tie this when that will be done. That's what we focusing on. We focusing on the will of Yahweh Shah. We being service unto righteousness, service unto Yahweh Shah, man. And if a servant, no more servant, and we're sons. And if we're sons, we heirs, really paraphrasing. And if we heirs we heirs of Yahweh, then we joint heirs with Yahweh Shai, man. Yahweh Shai is sharing the kingdom with us, right? And that's why we enduring that suffering and pain, so that we'll sit on that throne with Yahweh Shai, overcoming that temptation. With that being said, Lord willing, Holy lessons edifying and exalting. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadice. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the whole elect, starting with the 144,000. Shalom.